So we all know Monday night, President Trump ordered an immediate pause of all federal grant and loan funding, freezing billions of dollars for programs all across the country. These programs range from large infrastructure projects. We heard from homeless shelters and more. And right now, people are feeling a lot of hurt. The memo that was distributed yesterday lacked any detail and was utterly vague, causing chaos, consternation, and confusion from coast to coast, including right here in Ohio's 13th Congressional District. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you only have a concept of a plan. These actions are unconscionable and unacceptable, and the power of the purse lies solely with the United States Congress, not the executive branch. But let's all remember that the people who are really being hurt by this are everyday Ohioans, everyday Americans across the country who are just trying to make ends meet and get by day to day. This funding freeze will make it harder for people to rely on the very basic services that they have come to rely on. It blocks funding for teachers, support for first responders. It does not sustain life sustaining and saving medical research or provide mental health services and house homeless veterans. Across the board, this funding freeze is detrimental and harmful, and it took no consideration of the people of Ohio's 13th Congressional District or anywhere else in the state or country. As temperatures dip into negatives this month, Access Women's Shelter in Akron is waiting on hundreds of thousands of dollars to best help some of our community's most vulnerable women and children. And I can certainly go on and I will go on because our community is hurting. And this didn't just start with the executive order to halt federal funding and loans. The president halted the funding through the infrastructure as well. I serve on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee as the vice ranking member, and the ranking member, Congressman Rick Larsen, and I led a letter amongst Democrats on the committee imploring the president to change course because we have such significant infrastructure projects across the country, in particular here in this district. I know folks get very concerned about barrels and the detours, but I remind people every barrel is a good paying job, usually a good paying union job. And halting funding for those projects means people are not working. It means that when you drive over the high level bridge, as I did yesterday, you feel that shake and you're wondering, when are we going to replace it? Those funds may be held up from this as well. I'm sure my office, as well as others, spent almost the entirety of the day fielding calls from people who were concerned about what happens next. We heard from the city of Akron, the village of Clinton, the Autism Society, LGBTQ communities, the Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority, talked about Access Shelter, Humility for Mary Housing, the Summit County Clerk of Courts, the Good Samaritan Hunger Center, the Greater Akron Chamber, and the Girl Scouts of Northeast Ohio. And that's just to name a few. To be very clear, these federal funds, although not yet in the hands of these government and organizations, were being counted on to make a real significant difference in the lives of our communities, and including here in Akron, where last year we announced almost $51 million for the Sustainable Polymers Tech Hub. And this year we announced another $3 million for the Greater Akron Chamber for job training to support the Tech Hub. These funds are impacted. We don't know what's going to happen to the Tech Hub, this multi-million dollar program that was going to sustain and completely change our workforce here in the community in our future. We helped secure nearly $15 million of community project funding through the fiscal 24 budget, with the exception of $904,000 for Silver Lake. All of these funds are impacted. 12 additional projects don't know when they're going to get their resources. I've heard from council presidents, I've heard from mayors since yesterday, who are trying to figure out if their fire stations and their community safety centers are going to be built and whenever they're going to see this funding. Our Summit County Public Health Program department is waiting on an estimated $9 million of federal funding. And as I shared, Access is concerned as well. You know, we are having this conversation for a couple of reasons. One, we want to let the general public know that we are well aware of the concern that is happening, and we are here to support them as we navigate this, and we are holding the administration accountable for this reckless behavior that they have engaged in. Creating this kind of chaos for people who need support and services from their government is truly unacceptable, but we are here to support you. I know I listed several different communities and organizations who we have been in contact with But as we continue this, we want to hear from you. We want to know how widespread this impact is so we can share this with the Trump administration as we hold them accountable to make this right on behalf of our constituents. So if you have not reached out to us to share your concerns or where you think you may be impacted us, please call in our Akron office. The number is 330-400-5350. Please let us know how we can best support you. Please let us know what programs may be impacted so that we can engage further. Before I turn it over to Congresswoman Brown, a judge yesterday put an administrative stay on the order. So we have a couple more days until this fully shows itself how problematic this freeze is going to be. And that freeze until the stay is until February 3rd at 5 p.m. But in that time, you want to gather as much information as possible to make the case about how harmful this freeze is to our communities, to our infrastructure, to jobs, to mental health, to public safety, and more. And we are asking for the help from the community. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to my colleague and good friend, Congresswoman Shontel Brown.